What up, fam? So this video is going to be about how, I guess, what an index fund is and the three major index funds, you could say, the three ones I look at primarily. There are more index funds than just these three, but these are the three I look at primarily. These are the three I see that come up a lot. I want to try and keep these videos shorter to start and simple because there is a lot of information in the stock market that a lot of people really don't know to begin with. So I will start simple, basic indexes, and then eventually I will work the way into different patterns to look for when you get to the technical analysis part of things. So basically, we'll start off with what is an index fund, since a lot of people don't know what that is. Basically, an index fund, it's very simple. It tracks the market. It's made up of a number of stocks, and as it says somewhere in here that I saw earlier, which I cannot find right now, so that's not important, but essentially, the value of the index fund comes from the underlying holdings. If you guys see that in here, great, because I do not see it right now. An example, pretty much to break it down. So we'll say, disclaimer, S&P 500, that's one of the ones we're going to talk about here. But say you are deciding between owning American Airlines and Amazon. Well, essentially, if you buy the S&P 500, you buy both of them. You own a little portion of both of them, along with the other companies that are involved in the S&P 500. So the first index we're going to talk about here is the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ stands for the National Association of Security Dealers Automated Quotations. It was founded in 1971 by NASD, otherwise known as the National Association of Security Dealers. Like I just said, this sounds familiar. It contains all of the companies that trade on the NASDAQ. As you can see, there are over 3,000 of them. It's a lot of companies. A lot of these companies that are involved are mainly technology and internet related, but there are financial, consumer, biotech, and industrial companies that are involved in the NASDAQ as well. Moving down, some advantages of the NASDAQ. Obviously, the way society is moving, technology and internet has a lot of room to grow, so it has a lot of potential. But on the other end, the disadvantages, the same exact thing. It's internet and technology. So when internet and technology takes a hit, like Apple right now, for example. I mean, I know Apple is not traded on the NASDAQ. We're going to use Apple for an example anyway. It's taken a big hit because of the antitrust laws, the lawsuit that's going up against it. Even though actually it didn't take a hit today, I take that back. But it could very well take a hit eventually. And that would, in theory, affect it, even though it wouldn't. But you know what I'm saying. Technology, one tech is affected, or all affected. Moving on. Oh, one more thing. It is more volatile than NASDAQ for that reason. It's a lot more volatility because, like I said, it's just one really major industry. All right, now we're really moving on. Now we will move on to the Dow Jones Industrial Average, otherwise known as the Dow. This was created in 1896 by Charles Dow himself, and essentially it's composed of 30 U.S. blue chip companies, which really big household names, like, for example, Apple, Coca-Cola, Disney, like big household names that you've heard of. It covers all the industries except for transportation and utilities, which I believe those are listed right here. Dow Jones Transportation Average and Dow Jones Utility Average recover those industries on their own. So, advantage and disadvantage. Obviously, the Dow's been around a long time. It's to the test of time. It contains 30 of the most familiar companies. Like I said, Nike, Disney, Coca-Cola, Apple's in there. A lot of big name companies. So it's not as volatile, and those companies really aren't going anywhere. No one's going to see Nike going out of business, even though they're getting sued by Kawhi Leonard right now. No one's really thinking, well, that's it, Nike's going to go under. No, they're going to come around. Like Apple, like I just said, they have a big antitrust lawsuit going on, but Apple's going to bounce back in a couple of years. It's just going to happen. It's that simple. But the disadvantage is there's only 30 of them. So it's not as good of a benchmark as it once was appeared as, but it also is very good at the same time. Now, we're going to move on to my personal favorite, which a lot of people view as the benchmark, including a lot of higher up people, the S&P 500. The S&P 500, as it says at the top, stands for the Standard & Poor's 500 index. It's made up of 500 large cap companies, market cap of 6.1 billion or greater. It covers all the major areas in the U.S. economy. This is going to sound biased, but this is the perfect one for asset allocation. If you have to invest in one of these, this is probably the one I would invest in myself. Moving down, the advantages, like I said, it's the best benchmark for world cap large stocks. Perfect. It's got a great asset allocation, diversification. Accounts for 80% of the U.S. market. It really has everything. Warren Buffett himself, and this will be in another video later, he personally says when he passes away, 90% of his family's wealth that is left to them is going to be requested to be placed in an S&P 500 index, recommended Vanguards, and 10% short-term government bonds. But as with everything, there is a disadvantage. The disadvantage in this is the index only really contains large cap U.S. companies, so it may not be the best if you own other small cap companies or if you invest in foreign companies overseas. That's really the two main disadvantages that obviously are said here and that I really thought about off the top of my head. Really aren't a lot. This is probably for general investors that are new and don't know a ton. This is probably the way to go. Obviously, look into it yourself, do your own due diligence. Don't just take my word for it. But companies that are involved in this, Amazon's involved in this, Advanced Micro Devices, they're involved in this, the S&P 500. Home Depot's involved in the S&P 500. There's tons of also, like the Dow, household names that are involved in the S&P 500. But those are the three indexes that really are tracked regularly by people, I feel like, when you hear them talk about these indicators, or indexes rather. These are the ones that come up. I hope this helps. I hope you guys realize what this is. I hope you look into these indexes a little more. And yeah, hope this helps. Peace.